Okay, here I want to reveal a few of the tricks to get some of these images drawn. I hope you found these out. This first challenge is mainly an issue of using some of the basic drawing tools and layering them. For instance, these little peaks are simply polygons that were drawn with 3 corners and filled and then sunk to the back. Little crenellation was a path. So just tracing out a path, carefully moving some of the dots. I mean, you can just draw it and then readjust. You can always add dots by clicking on the line to add more points. So this was really just a question of getting a path drawn with the right arrangement of points. The towers, again, were polygons. Other parts were just rectangles. You can see circles and so forth. So it's just really an issue of knowing how you identify these shapes in an image and you can use them. A little bit of trickiness here. This arch was drawn by using a circle, a rectangle, and then a white rectangle that had no border to block off that bottom. And those 3 pieces together created the illusion of having an arch. And then, of course, these were just individual lines. They were drawn and rotated. So there's the first challenge. Oh, and actually I forgot one thing. These filled spaces, this is a trick you can do only with paths and polygons. But if you look at the property under Appearance, there's a field called Fill Graphic. In order to make that work, all you need to do is load a small graphic. So you can take that Stones PNG and you come and you drop it on that field. Now it doesn't let me because it's already in there, but you would drop it in the field in the message center, and then that pattern is used to fill the shape, and it fills both the polygon and any path shape that you might draw. Okay, so that's challenge number 1. Now here's challenge number 2, and basically this is exactly the same thing, but just using a little bit more of some of the special features. Again, you can see how these are simple polygons and rectangular shapes and so forth. The one that might be a little bit different or is tricky is these irregular shapes like these curved towers. I'm going to bring that up to the front. And if you look at this, and we can double click to see the shapes, not only does it have triangle corners on the polygon, it has circular ones, and these are curve fitting points. So if you use these, instead of creating straight lines between points, it creates a curve. And so that's how you can get these curved edges of your shapes. If you want to create those, you just click on a selected point and that changes it into a curve. And you can change it back by clicking again. So that's how you do that, and you can also do that by adding a new point and making it a curve. So cool ways you can create those shapes that maybe seem a little bit irregular. You can see again that we used a different fill pattern, but it created the brickwork, the colorful brickwork. But the only tricky thing is that instead of making that a rectangle, it had to be drawn as a polygon, a 4-cornered polygon, because you can't use the fill pattern in rectangles or circles. Talking of circles, here's our sun, which is basically a big circle, but to get this change of color just around the edge, we used a glow length of 30. The standard color in the effects is a yellow. You could change it to whatever color you'd like. You give it orange glow if you want, but that glow is created and you specify how big you want, and we're using 30, which is the maximum size of that glow. And the rest of this really, again, is just layering and really drawing lots of polygons. You can see how the landscape are different profiles to create the sense of the hills. The path is a polygon, and all of these things are really just knowing how to create those polygons and tracing out the edges by creating additional points and moving them around. So as you can see, you can do a ton of stuff with these basic shapes as long as you look at the image and you see what kind of shapes are there. So there's challenge 2. And finally, here's challenge 3, which again is more of the same technique. One different thing is you can see that when I move this pencil around, it all goes together, but there's a number of pieces there. And that's accomplished by doing what we call grouping. And so you can highlight a number of items and go to Arrange and pick Group. If you want to deselect them, you can ungroup. And now these are individual. And we can pull it apart and you can see that this is really just a series of rectangles. Here's a rectangle that has a curved corner. Here's another rectangle that has a gradient, and these are 2 polygons that draw triangles. One thing about gradients I should have mentioned in challenge 2, which is notice how this rectangle has more than a 2-position gradient. And so when you look at the gradient editor, notice that I have 3, and you can always add more color gradations by clicking plus, and then you have another chip that I could put a different color in. So if for something that doesn't show up, let me pick red so it's obvious. So you can see now we've added red. You can rotate the direction of that gradient by just rotating the arrow that's on the gradient chip. You can also change the direction by clicking over here on the left. And so that reverses the direction of the gradient. If you want to undo a change or get rid of a color, you can just simply click minus, and that removes chips from the right. So you could remove them one at a time. Let's see, to get this back, I want to have that rotated back the way it was. But that's how we got that image. And so then you would just put these things arranged appropriately and then layer them in the way so that things are blocked out as you want. And that's how you create some of these images. And again, this is going to be really quick to load because these are just drawn and stored within Zebra, and you don't have to load any additional images. I think everything else is pretty obvious. Here's the dry erase marker was also grouped. If we ungroup that, you can see that it's just a couple of different polygons and a rectangle, and then we rotated them by using the blue dot to get them all lined up in the right orientation. The tape is simply 2 ovals that have a 0% opacity fill, and so they're hollow, but their line weight was made somewhat large. This one is 10. The wider one is a line weight of 30, and so that's the way you get a ring and line them up. It looks like a roll of tape. And then I guess the trickiest thing here was the paper clips again, but these are it's a path, and you can see that it's just arranging smooth curve fitting lines with corner points in order to give the impression of a paper clip. Okay, and again, I only did one of these one time and then copied it and rotated that image so that it looked like there were lots of different ones, and those were stacked on top of each other. So hopefully you were able to get at least some of these points, and if you didn't, you can go back now and try to recreate them on your own. And I really can't accentuate enough how valuable it is to feel comfortable with these tools. Even if you're just prototyping, to throw some things on the screen that look a little bit representative help a lot for you to visualize it. So good luck. I'll be back with another challenge next week.